The following program is being brought to you on the Seventh Wave Network. For more information about our network and to check our additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit seventhwavenetwork.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the following program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.
Welcome to Empowering Your Soul with Lisa Ouellet. If you're ready to make personal changes in your life and the lives of those around you, get ready for an hour of encouragement, enlightened guests, and engaging stories. Now, here is your host, Lisa Ouellet.
Hello, and welcome to Empowering Your Soul. I'm your host, Lisa Ouellet, and I'm very excited to have as a guest today the extremely gifted, world-renowned animal communicator, Sonya Fitzpatrick. Sonya has written 3 books on animal communication and behavior: The Pet Psychic, What Animals Tell Me; Cat Talk, The Secrets of Communicating with Your Cat; and the most recent book, There Are No Sad Dogs in Heaven, which we'll talk about during the show. She's also the host of Animal Intuition, a popular call-in radio show on Sirius XM. She's a regular columnist for a popular pet website, alettertomydog.com. You might also remember her TV shows a few years back, The Pet Psychic and The Pet Psychic Encounters on Animal Planet. And I believe she has a new series coming up called Celebrity Pet Psychic. And that sounds so interesting. I'd love for her to share more information about that with us. And now I'd love to introduce you and welcome you to my show. Welcome, Sonya.
Thank you, Lisa. What a pleasure it is to be on your show.
Oh, I'm so excited.
To enlightened listeners.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining me. This is a topic that fascinates me, and I'm sure so many others as well. I have so many questions for you. I'm not sure we're going to have enough time for them all, but we're going to try to get to them. So I guess we'll first start with, if you would like to tell us a little bit about the new show that you have coming up called Celebrity Pet Psychic.
Yeah, I can't say too much about that now. It's out there, and it's literally talking to celebrities' animals, and then talking back to me, of course. But there's at the moment, I just can't talk too much about it. That makes sense to you, I'm sure.
Oh, sure. No, absolutely. I completely understand that. How about if you tell us a little bit about how your gift started?
Yes, I will. I was born, Lisa, with a severe hearing loss, and I couldn't hear people speaking, but I could always hear the animals. And I didn't speak verbally until I was 5 years old. So the animals taught me their language, literally taught me their language. And as a little girl, I thought everyone could do it, but very soon I found out that people couldn't do that. And I was born with one foot in the spiritual realm and one foot in the physical world, because I see spirit and I used to see spirit then.
That's fascinating. That's really, that's interesting. And so you learned to just communicate with the animals on the farm that you lived on, is that correct?
Yes. Well, my father was a shopkeeper and we lived in the village, but my uncle had a farm too. So it was really like in England. I lived in a small village and my father was the village grocer. And my uncle had a farm in the village, so I used to spend a lot of time with the animals at the farm, a lot of time. And they used to talk to me, and I would talk back to them.
That's fascinating. That really interests me. I understand after reading your book, too, that Emily, your granddaughter, shares your gifts. Is that...
She does, darling, very much so. She is... very, very in tune with animals, a great love of animals, a great animal activist. She's only 12 years old and into the environmental things like trees, and has a great feeling for trees and plants and the whole, she's like me in so many ways, because people say she's a spitting image of you. And we have a tremendously close relationship. And I think this goes back because I know for a fact that she was my grandmother when I was a child, and she's been reincarnated. And when I was a little girl, she helped me so much with my ability to talk to animals and how to handle things with the spirit world. She was a great help to me. And when she was born, I had this tremendous feeling and awareness. Many people don't trust their imagination, and they will say, oh, it's only the imagination, but the imagination is vision. And when I'm actually talking to animals, I'm using my imagination all the time. And if we didn't use our imagination, we're always creating with it. We're always seeing things with it. It's a great gift we have. So many people think, imagination isn't real, but of course it is. So, that is how I speak to animals, with feeling and sensing, and I hear telepathically, but I hear their words in my head. And I see visions, and when I'm talking to animals, it happens so fast. I get a feeling of emotions. I use my emotional body. And also, you get images. And people often think when you're seeing things with animals, you're going to see with the physical eye. So they're expecting to see everything very solid.
Exactly.
Well, it's not like that. If I was to say, can you tell me where the Statue of Liberty is, you have an image, don't you, in your mind. That's how spirit works. It's images. You do not see with the physical eye. And it's also feelings, emotions, and senses. So you have to trust that. When I'm talking to animals, it all happens so quickly. It starts and it boom, boom, boom.
Oh, that's great. I mean, and I have psychic ability as well too. That's what I do, and that's the same thing.
Yes, I know you do, Lisa.
No, that's it. I'm saying it's the same thing. It's like when you're reading people, but I didn't know if it was the same for animals. So that's good to know. So,
yes, darling, it is, because when people will often say to me, I almost know what my animal is thinking and feeling, and they are. And trust your imagination and trust your feelings, because you use with your emotional body all of the time when you're talking to animals.
Right.
Always.
Well, I recently read your latest book while I was experiencing the demise of my own beloved cat. My cat Cece crossed over right as I was reading your book. I hadn't read your latest book prior to the show, and your story about Ellie's crossing your dog was heartbreaking for me, and I honestly had to put the book aside while I was grieving. But you really touched my heart with that story, and there were so many others in that book that just touched me so much. But at the time, I was just so emotional. I'm like, I have to read this at a later date.
Lisa, whenever we lose an animal, people grieve more over their animals dying than they do on often relatives, because you have that special relationship with them. And it's so different. They just love us unconditionally. And they are, if the world was like dogs, there would never be any wars, because they love us unconditionally. They're loyal, they're faithful, they forgive, and they're always there for us, and they're always pleased. And, they have a healing quality, of course, as you know. And if the world was like that, I often say that animals communicate on a higher level of consciousness. And, we would live in peace and love and joy.
Well, I know people that I know a lot of people that love their animals more than they love their human beings, or they treat their pets like they're, like children. So absolutely.
Yeah. Sometimes, an animal will say to me, oh, my mum loves me more than she loves my dad. And she'll say, that's right, I do.
That's
and
funny.
They're also different. They all have different personalities, and I can always tell when I do a reading for someone that what the people are like, if they're interesting or they're funny, because the animal takes on a lot of our personality too. And when they're living with us, they have a good sense of humor. People have a good sense of humor, and they're funny. They're funny when they talk. They all come up with all different sorts of things. Some of them gossip, some of them don't. It just depends, And when did your cat, Lisa, have trouble with its abdomen area?
He passed from a tumor in his in his spleen. So he, I guess it had been going on for a little while.
Yes, but a lot of love there, and you've been with him in many past lives as well as this one. And when did you have a move with him?
We moved probably it'll be 2 years in August.
Yes, and he said that it was a good move for you. He's here, darling, he's talking to me. And that's what people must understand, that when their animal crosses over, it's just the physical body that dies, and the energy body gets out, and it's around us and with us. So do keep talking to them.
Oh,
but he said absolutely. It was a good move, and the house was completely different, he said, the floors.
Oh, he loved it. It's so funny because we lived on the second floor of an apartment and now we live in a house, and it has screen doors where the first day he got here, I opened up the screen doors and he was like, on floor level, the sliding glass doors, and he was just breathing in the fresh air. He absolutely did love it. So I
Oh, he
thank
loved
you.
it.
Thank you for
And
that confirmation.
he was affectionate and he was stubborn, he's telling me.
He's not as stubborn as his brother who's still here, but yeah.
He
he
said
had
I
his
was
moments.
affectionate and stubborn. And and his brother said yes, and he was a bit bossy sometimes too.
Well, it's really sweet because as he was crossing over, as he was passing, I believe the pets have a telepathic bond too, because Midnight is my other cat, and towards the end, Cece wasn't able to clean himself, or he wasn't able
Yeah,
to eat, or he was just kind
yeah,
of lethargic, and
yeah,
the other cat would jump up on the couch and he would clean him and he would lick him and take care of him, and
yes,
I think he sensed that it was his time, so
yeah. Well, they do, don't they? They know, but
yeah,
they grieve also, Lisa, just like we do, and they grieve with us.
right,
Although they miss that physical body so much, and if you're psychic, you probably very well, you are aware of the
yeah,
spiritual realm, but
absolutely,
I still grieve just like everyone else, even though I can see them in the spiritual realm. It's never the same as when they're in their physical bodies and they're with us, and everything we miss, their little sounds, their meows or their barks and all their little
right.
idiosyncrasies. But the lovely thing is, many reincarnate back to us.
Oh, that's
And
what,
when that
it's funny
happens,
too. I was wondering that myself, if they actually do come back in a different body, or
yes.
come back in a different lifetime.
And sometimes what they also do, Lisa, is because they're just energy, they will sometimes go into, the existing animals. One of them they'll choose, and the cat or the dog will allow them to take over their body, and you'll see certain characteristics of that dog or cat that's passed over in one of your animals that you already have.
Oh,
And
wow.
that's wonderful because many people see that, and they'll just go, because they're energy, they can just go in and out of the physical body. But the physical body for them is very heavy, and it takes a little while for them to adjust back to the frequencies in the physical body. It doesn't happen that quickly. They have to adjust to the heavy physical body because when we're energy, we can just move so fast.
True.
And but often people will see characteristics. You may get another animal, and you may find it'll go into that because we've all been animal lovers. Have all been animals in different past lifetimes. And
See, I
lots of the
wasn't
animals
sure
have
about
been in
that.
human form.
So that's accurate, huh? I didn't know
Yes.
that.
Yes, I wrote one of the stories in the book
Okay.
in There's No Sad Dogs in Heaven about a couple whose father said to them, I'm going to come back to you as your dog.
Right.
And when they called me and I had the appointment with them, I said, I know this may sound strange to you, but your father has reincarnated in your dog. And they started laughing. They said, we know that. And, so you can come back in human forms or animal forms. And we've been, all of us, in many different species. People think because they're human, they're a little bit more superior, and that couldn't possibly happen. But believe you me, the animals are much more superior than many human beings.
Well, that
in
was
their way of
that
thinking
I
and
hadn't
loving.
realized that, and I did read it in your book, and it was definitely eye-opening for me because I did not realize that the reincarnation aspect I knew, but I didn't know that they could come back in a human, reincarnate from a human to an animal, or vice versa. So,
Yes,
thank you.
yes, they definitely can, and they do. And often when we're over the other side, when we go out of our body, sometimes we're all working out karmas, I believe, while we're here on the earth plane. I believe we're all working out karmic things, and the most important thing, we're here to learn. And to learn, I don't ever think that we make mistakes. I think they're experiences, and if we gain from them by learning, that's the most important thing. Some people don't learn. They just keep going through the same old thing all the time, and they don't change. But there are other people that once they have experiences, they learn so much from those experiences. And that's so in that case, you've gained something whilst you've been here. Because a lifetime is a short time. It seems a long time sometimes. But as you get older, it seems shorter, Lisa.
Right, and the time on spirit side, and the time difference is not quite the same in the astral realm or the spirit world as us. Yeah,
that's right.
Sonya, would you be able to tell us? I know you have a lot of animals, if I understand correctly, right?
do.
You have a lot of pets. Would you like to tell us what you have?
I do. Yeah, I have all rescue. All my animals are rescue. I've got
Wonderful.
4 on my bed right now, 4 dogs on my bed right now while I'm talking to you. And they're all rescue. They're all wonderful, wonderful spiritual beings, each and every one of them. And I have, I lose count sometimes. I have like 11 cats now, and they're all rescue. I've just been rescuing another one that was left and gradually coming into my garage. And my car never sits in my garage. My garage, for the feral cats who are too afraid to come into the house with the other cats, they live out there, and they have heated pads in the winter and heater.
Aww.
They have an air conditioner in the summer. I open the garage door, and I live near a reserve, and they play all morning, and then I call them, they come in, and I put the door down. And then I put on the air conditioning. So it's a perfect haven for them.
They're not spoiled or anything, are they?
I never turn an animal away, Lisa, because they've taught me everything I know.
Right.
Absolutely everything. And I just love them so much. Tremendous love for them.
Absolutely. And they don't sound spoiled at all, Sonya.
No. Any more than yours was, darling.
No, I know. Well, that's the thing. The world needs more humane people and more people that have compassion, good-hearted people to be caring animal lovers. I mean, my belief is, why have pets if you aren't going to take good care of them? I mean, they truly become members of our family.
That's right. And they are, members of our family. And there are equally as many wonderful unsung heroes out there that many people are cruel to animals, but there are equally as many that help animals and dedicate their lives to helping animals. And often people will wonder, I wonder what I'm doing here or what my purpose in life is. Well, if you're rescuing animals and you're working with animals, that's your purpose in life. That's what you're here for.
Absolutely. You're in your latest book that you just wrote, No
Sad Dogs in Heaven.
Yes, thank you. That Jeff and Emily story about rescuing the Ridgeback was especially rewarding and so empowering to read. I truly love the line where you wrote, while they certainly knew that legally they had kidnapped the second dog, Jeff and Emily always looked upon what they'd done as performing a rescue. And, after reading that story, I certainly saw it that way. The world definitely needed more compassionate, good-hearted people. I mean, they were definitely willing to take on the responsibility of an animal that was being neglected or abused or whatever.
And Lisa, there's so many people out there that do that.
I know.
They do it. And if they, I always say, if you see an animal in need, please help it, whatever way you can. Because, don't go by the rules. Because I remember the lady that was helping me write the book, she said, that's terrible, that's stealing. And I said to her, well, I have to tell you, I've done that more than once when an animal's been tied up or neglected. I have done that.
I have friends that do it too. I've never run into the circumstance myself, but I know people that have done it as well, and they don't have any qualms about it because they're performing a service. So,
and I cannot bear cruelty to animals of any kind. And when you tie a dog up, and sometimes people, just leave their dogs out in their yards. Dogs are companion animals. They get lonely, and also, if the weather's hot, it's very hard because they can get sunburnt animals and hot and overheated. And when it's cold, they can be very, very cold. There are different areas where people just do not take their dogs inside.
Absolutely. Sonya, we're going to stop right here just for a second, and we're going to take a short commercial break. But I want everybody to stay tuned, though, because when we come back, we're going to get to some questions that people wrote in. And prior to the show, they sent me some questions for her to answer. And then Sonya is going to share with us some more about communicating with the animals when we return. So stay tuned.
The Seventh Wave Channel on the Voice America Network.
Lisa Ouellet is honored to assist you as you move forward from imprisonment to empowerment. Individual intuitive sessions are available in person, by telephone, or via Skype. Visit www.lisaouellet.com. While there, you can also find information about 1 hour and half-hour Reiki sessions, life coaching, and tuning into your intuition classes. These classes will help you learn to trust your intuition and tune into yourself more easily. Mention that you heard about us on Empowering Your Soul and receive 10% off your next session. Visit LisaOuellet.com today.
Be visionary. Be extraordinary. Be the change. This is the Seventh Wave Channel on the Voice America Network.
You are listening to Empowering Your Soul. To reach Lisa Ouellet, you may send an email to lisaouellet@comcast.net. That's lisaouellet@comcast.net. Now, back to Empowering Your Soul.
Welcome back to Empowering Your Soul. If you're just tuning in now, I'm your host, Lisa Ouellet. I'd like to remind you that if you want to listen to the show again or share it with your friends, it will be available in a few hours for rebroadcast directly on my Voice America homepage or my website, which is www.lisaouellet.com, and on iTunes as a podcast, as well as links on my Facebook page and my Twitter page. And I believe that Sonya will have it on her Facebook page later today as well. Today, my guest is pet psychic Sonya Fitzpatrick, and we were just talking about how people treat animals better and how the world needs better people to handle and care for, love our animals. And prior to the break, now we're going to come back and get to some of the questions that you wrote in for Sonya. So welcome back again, Sonya.
Thank you. And my website, Lisa, is www.sonyafitzpatrick.com.
Perfect. Yep. And I was going to tell people that they could reach you there, and also that you do private readings. Is that correct?
I do.
Okay. Excellent. So if somebody wants to reach you for that, they'll know how to get you. They can call you.
They will.
Or email you there.
And there's so many things on there about that, information, for instance, about vaccinations and how we're over-vaccinating. And by law, you have to have the rabies. And there's an interview with Dr. Marty Goldstein in New York. They can plug onto that. So there's a lot of information on my website.
Right. It's very informative, definitely. Now, besides the private readings that you do, I know you do lectures and seminars. Do you teach others about your gifts?
Yes, I do. I have workshops. In fact, I have a workshop coming up in Houston, I think in September. And I do, by the time people leave, I teach them how to communicate with animals, and the most important thing is receiving the animal's language, because people are doing it without realizing anyway. But it's receiving the language that they find hard. And Lisa, I haven't had one person leave my seminars without being able to get some of the things from their own animals and hear them talking to them.
Oh, wow.
That makes me very joyful.
Oh my God,
it's really joyful.
It's absolutely empowering. I mean, that's why we do this job, really, is to help other people to empower themselves, right?
That's right. Right. And to be able to know that they're talking to their animals without realizing that they're doing it. And the most important thing is, when you are talking to your animals, to always get the emotion right with whatever you're saying. If you've got a problem with your animal or the cat's peeing, there's always a reason why the cat does that. If it's been using its litter box for so long and then suddenly it doesn't go in the litter box. So, ask your cat why you're doing this, why it's doing this, and meditate down to start with, and make sure there's no noise going on. And then just ask the question telepathically in your head, and then see what you get back in a way of images. It's very subtle, the language. It's not going to hit you and knock you down. It's so subtle. And see what gently comes to you, and be very aware of your emotional body, because the emotions come first. And all animal lovers are doing it. All animal lovers are doing it.
Whether they realize it or not, right?
Yes.
So does it make a difference? Excuse me. Does it make a difference then if you have, let me rephrase that. You don't have to be face-to-face with the animal then. You can do it.
Darling. I read animals all over the world. I have clients all over the world. China, I have them because my books went, of worldwide. And I'll have interpreters that will interpret them. So, once you it works through, like, for instance, I get a link with the human companion, and then the animal starts to talk with me. But it's a magnetic field link. The magnetic fields run through the universe. And that's what the birds use to fly from Africa to England. They get on one of those magnetic fields and they fly all the way. It directs them. So the magnetic fields, the animals know how to use them. Humans don't see them. I can see them. I was born seeing magnetic fields. And when I talk to someone, I'm picking up a direct telephone line with them once I get their energy. Okay. And then it starts. Then I've got the energy of the animal and a magnetic field to the animal. And then it boom, 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 boom. It happens so quickly.
That's
but they
great.
use the magnetic field. So you all have a direct link to your animals. If you go on vacation, you've got a direct telephone line to them. And most people have their picture of their animals on their telephone. So when they look at the animal, it reaches the animal instantly like that. It's so fast.
Well,
and they know that they're thinking about them.
I wondered if it made a difference if you had to look in the eyes. Like, does that, you can do it telepathically, I'm sure, but does looking into the eyes make a difference? Does it impact the reading at all?
No, darling, it doesn't. I find doing it on the telephone is the easiest way.
Oh, but I mean, with a picture of if you had a picture in front of you from a phone, you don't have to be looking the animal in the eye is what I was curious
about. No,
darling,
you don't. Your thoughts and feelings are going out. They're transmitting out. That's what they feel. The love from you, because everybody loves their animals. And I find that if you are away from them, if you're working or you have to work and travel, the first thing you do, they feel that love from you, and you can talk to them. So you're talking to them. And you can do it even if you haven't got a picture because you visualize them in your mind.
Okay. So everybody out there, take this advice. It's really good advice. Try it. Try it at home.
To their animals. And if they want to tell their animals, Lisa, when they're coming back, you visualize nighttime. And then you go through the day, like the routine you would have with your animal during the day. And nighttime again. So about 4 days before you come home, or 5, start doing that, and then you drop down to 4, then 3 days, then 2 days, then 1 day, and they know exactly when you're coming home.
Perfect. I'm going to try that. After I read your book, How to Talk to the Cats, yes. I had a hard time. My cats are stubborn, so they weren't really up for it. But I'm going to practice this again. I'm going to try this again.
Lisa, don't think that they're not up for it. They'll probably be a bit surprised.
Okay.
But you will get something if you keep doing that and you're quiet. Pay attention to your feelings and emotions, and you're psychic anyway, so you're going to get it quickly. But as I said, it's a very subtle language. It's not going to knock you over. You just very gently feel and sense it.
Okay. I'm going to definitely try that. I want to make sure we have time to get to some of the questions. I have so much to talk about with you, and gosh, I feel like we're not going to have enough time. The first question comes from Mary Ann in Manchester, New Hampshire. She's asking about missing pets. She has a dog, Stanley, that went missing several months ago when he ran into the woods to chase a deer while she was visiting friends out of state. And she wants to know if missing pets can communicate with you about their whereabouts. Can they let you know where they are or if they're okay?
Yes, often missing animals is work that I do, and I usually manage to track the animals to the location they are, and they'll give me pictures, images, and I have an idea of which way they've gone, and people can know exactly where because they're living in the area where the pet has got lost. So if I can track the area, then I start to tune in. But, and they're talking to me the whole time that I'm doing this. They're telling me which way they went, whether they went to the left or the right, and the images they saw, there'd be a church or an older home, and I don't only see it, I smell it too.
Okay.
So, and I feel when they walked on a busy road, I hear the traffic, they will send that to me, and I feel I always become the animal. I become a dog, if it's a lost dog. I feel like when it goes to a hard surface, which is a road very often, I feel the surface change under my hands because I am the dog, and I use my arms and my front legs and my legs and my back legs. So I feel and I smell the scent of the gas on the road.
Okay.
So yes, they can. They can talk to them and you can track them. But I say if you've got an animal missing, it's important that you get flyers up immediately and don't just flyer in the immediate area and put a big number at the top of them. Like your telephone number has to be big and the picture of the animal underneath, lost. Picture the telephone number, and then put them on every subdivision coming in and out. And don't think they have gone a short way because sometimes animals go a long way.
Right. And I happen to know this person that wrote this question in. She knew I was doing the show with you. And so I know for a fact that she's done all of that. My question to follow up with that would be, even though it's been 3 months, would you if she were to call you for a reading or such, would you still be able to, because it's not a recent dog that went missing?
How much time it takes, because even if they're not still alive in their physical body, they're still alive in their spiritual body.
Okay.
So they'll come through from the spirit world, and they'll tell me exactly what happened.
Okay, so I'll suggest that to her then. All right, good to know.
Once I get the link with that, it's heartbreaking. It's the worst thing that can ever happen to any animal lovers. And I say, always get the tag. The tag is the most important thing with your telephone number on.
Right.
Microchipped is no good because they take them to the vet. The vet isn't going to look at the microchip if it thinks the animal belongs to them. And some people get very fond of that animal and don't want to let it go.
Right. I think that might be what happened in this case. Such a lovable dog that, anybody would want it.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. And you may have already answered this other question from Lorelei from Memphis, Tennessee. She wrote in, do our pets that have crossed over come back in the same lifetime in another body to be with us again? And I think you touched base on that question earlier.
Absolutely. That's why I wrote the book. So many people had so many questions about, is it time to let my animal go? Where does it go? Does it reincarnate? And so, yes, definitely.
So let me ask you this: when our pets cross over, do our other pets on the other side greet them?
Oh yes, all the souls go to the same place, Lisa.
Okay.
And life goes on the other side. And also, they will watch before they're coming here. I mean, often when an animal, crosses over, it's very just peace, love, and joy over there when the soul goes over the other side. And, they will watch us from the other side, but they're around us and with us. So continue to talk to your animals when they cross over, because they come out of the physical body and they're just, thought away, because the energy moves so quickly, and they'll hang around even after you've taken them to the vets. People are very sort of distressed. Of course they are. And they go home and they don't realize that the animal is there with them in a different way. And the animals always think it's so funny when they carry them in a box. They keep the ashes. The animal finds that so amusing, the fact that they're with the people. And often animals love it because they can go to the supermarket, they can go to restaurants, they can go everywhere with their human companion. And they love that because they can go anywhere that their human companion goes, even on vacations.
Absolutely. Excuse me. Absolutely. And the last question that came in, was from Ralph from Wichita, Kansas. And he wanted to know if you did any work with the ASPCA or any other humane society
yes, I do. Okay. I help a lot of animals. I help with a lot of people that have animals that can't afford to do and to feed them. So I often provide food. I do as much as I can. In fact, my accountant tells me off every year, because and says, why are you doing all this work? Why do you do this? And I said, because I do everything I can to help animals. And not only do I talk to them, but I need to help them in other ways too. Right. And there's only so much I can do, but I definitely do. I definitely help animals in every way I can. I mean, I've got animals, but there are people out there that are running animal sanctuaries that can hardly make it every month. And, there's, apart from the SPCA, and unfortunately they have to put so many animals down, the SPCA. I mean, I adopt from there because I know that, they have, sometimes they have 500 a day in.
I know.
So what can they do but put the animal down? And I always try and get people to go there to adopt animals, because that is the place to save one from death row. So yes, everything that I can do, I do to help animals. Apart from, with my business, I employ a lot of people. If someone to book my bookings, my PR lady, and then I have an assistant. So, it's expensive to run my business too.
Right. Right. All of my animals have always been rescue too. I find that to be just, sometimes there's not a lot we can do to help, but every little bit, every little bit
darling,
counts.
every little bit helps. I say that to people. If you've got a shelter near you, take towels, take cleaning products, take old beds, old toys, blankets. They need all of these things to help,
right. Absolutely.
with the animals.
At the grocery store, a lot of times when I'm leaving the grocery store, I'll buy an extra bag of cat food and drop it in. They have that at our local grocery store. They have a place that you can drop food.
And don't throw any towels away, because towels are valuable to them. I collect all my towels. I drop them up at my local animal shelter.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that. That's a good idea.
I get so upset. I want to take them all home. I mean, I've even got a rescue horse that I pulled off the slaughter truck, and he is a friend's branch now, and he's really happy. But I wanted to take them all. Whatever you do, one person can make such a difference in an animal's life.
It's so true. So I know that our time is coming up here. If you could if you could talk to people and tell them, what do you think is the most empowering thing that they can do? I mean, I know because the way you talk to animals, to me, that's such a gift, and it's so empowering. How can people empower themselves by doing this? I mean,
Well, you're all talking to animals, and I would say if you want to hear from them, and people do, like I said earlier, Lisa, people say, I almost know what my animal is thinking and feeling. Really, they're so subtle. If you get a change in emotions and you sit down and your energy body, your emotional body will tell you everything.
Right.
And you pick it up. If you get an emotion, a feeling, ask your animal a question, but make sure you're quiet, and you must meditate to clear your mind, because, everyone is so busy. And when you're first animal communicating, I have to meditate before, for instance, before I came on your show, I meditate. And before I do my own show, I meditate. And before I do my clients, I meditate. Right. And so, but you're all, remember, you're all doing it. You're all actually talking to your animal. So to receive back, don't dismiss feelings and emotions, because that comes in. Don't dismiss it as imagination. Imagination is vision, so trust it.
That's perfect. It's funny, too, because right before, excuse me, I'm sorry. Right before, well, I shouldn't say right before, maybe about 6 months before, my cats have totally different personalities. I had two different, they're from the same litter. They're brothers from the same litter. They look completely different. One's ginger colored and one's black, and totally different personalities. And Midnight has always been the one to sleep on my bed. And about 6 months ago, their behavior completely changed around, which I'm probably realizing now is when Cece started to get sick. And he started to be the one to sleep on my bed, and he started to be the more affectionate of the two, because the other one used to be. So it's funny that their personalities switched around like that. Did you find that happen
also,
sometimes?
If an animal passes over, the dynamics change between the other cats.
Oh, right. But I mean, I only had those two, and they were both still alive. Have you seen that happen sometimes as well?
Yes, very much so. You know, when you have a number of cats and one of them passes over, the dynamics change, things change. And sometimes cats will change their mind. People worry if they've been sleeping on their bed for 3 years, and then suddenly they stop. Yeah. And they're sleeping somewhere else, and they get really worried. But this is the way cats are.
Okay, that's good to know.
They think, let's go somewhere else. I'll have a bit of a change. So don't worry about that, because, I always feel you have to let don't be upset about it. Don't let that hurt your feeling. It doesn't mean that the cat doesn't love you. It does, but they just want to try different things sometimes, just like we do.
Right. Well, that makes sense. That completely makes sense. Excuse me. So I know that you had a prior commitment today, and
I do, darling. I do.
Yeah, and you weren't going to be able to stay for the last segment of my show, but I wanted to, I know we have to go to a commercial break in just a moment. I wanted to take this time and just thank you so much for being on the show today. And if anybody wants to reach Sonya, it's www.sonyafitzpatrick.com. And she said, she has lots of information available on her website, and very informative. And again, thank you so much for being on the show today. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and I will come back, and we'll be talking about the Rainbow Bridge a little bit on the return. So thank you so much. We'll be back shortly.
the Voice America 7th Wave Channel.
Lisa Ouellet is honored to assist you as you move forward from imprisonment to empowerment. Individual intuitive sessions are available in person, by telephone, or via Skype. Visit www.lisawillette.com. While there, you can also find information about 1 hour and half-hour Reiki sessions, life coaching, and tuning into your intuition classes. These classes will help you learn to trust your intuition and tune into yourself more easily. Mention that you heard about us on Empowering Your Soul and receive 10% off your next session. Visit lisawillette.com today.
We all want peace. We all desire a more meaningful life. We work hard to achieve these things, but at what avail? The key is authentic living with Andrea Matthews. Andrea will interview some of the great spiritual experts of today and will provide wisdom to help you raise your consciousness to the level of your own I am. Your authenticity can give you miraculous gifts, but you have to know how to get there. Listen for Authentic Living with Andrea Matthews. Heard live every Wednesday afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific Time on the 7th Wave Network.
The Voice America 7th Wave Channel. Seek greater awareness.
You are listening to Empowering Your Soul. To reach Lisa Ouellet, you may send an email to lisawillette@comcast.net. That's lisawillette@comcast.net. Now, back to Empowering Your Soul.
Welcome back to Empowering Your Soul. I'm your host, Lisa Ouellet. Again, if you're just tuning in, we had with us today Sonya Fitzpatrick, the animal communicator, pet psychic. She was able to give us so much information, things I didn't know. I'm going to try a couple of the tactics and advice that she gave about talking to my cats. She had to leave, unfortunately. She had a prior commitment, but was able to give us that time that she did, and I'm very grateful. I wanted to talk to you for the remainder of the show about, as you probably heard earlier, my cat Cece passed away while I was doing research for the show, while I was reading her books. I want to tell you a little bit about that because I believe I made a connection. As I crossed him over, I crossed him over the Rainbow Bridge when it was his time, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the Rainbow Bridge as well. But the story of how he passed, he hadn't been feeling well. And again, like I said, and she picked this up, he had a tumor in his spleen. And I believe it was probably there for a good 6 months, but I didn't realize it. When I did take him to the vet and they realized what it was, since he was getting up there in age. He was about 14, and I didn't want to traumatize him. I opted not to do surgery because intuitively, being psychic, I felt like it had spread to other parts of his body, and I didn't want to do exploratory surgery at his age. So I chose, being a Reiki master as well, I chose to take him home and give him Reiki on a daily basis and help heal him that way and try to maybe shrink the tumor or just put him at ease and keep him in peace. So that's what I did. Until it wasn't possible. My belief was that I would keep him as calm and peaceful as I could until it became impossible to do so. So on Father's Day weekend, I happened to notice that his behavior had changed a lot, and his things were deteriorating for him. He wasn't doing so well. He had pretty much stopped eating. His breathing was labored. I believe the tumor had grown so big that it was affecting how he took his breaths. And that was it was traumatic to watch. I had to make a lot of decisions that weekend about what I was going to do. And we had a family gathering going on for Father's Day. I was really torn about leaving him for the day, even just for a little while. So I talked to my deceased grandmother. I communicated with her, and she came through for me, and she told me that she would take care of him for me, and she would watch out for him while I spent some time with family. So not to worry, this needed to be done, and I needed to be with family. And so she promised me that she would keep him safe until I returned. So I trusted her to do that. I went to the family outing and basically had an anxiety attack on the drive there. Even though I trusted her, I was so worried about him, and I was so emotionally affected knowing that his time was really at the end. But when I came home, he had curled into a corner. You know how sometimes pets go to a certain place when they're getting ready to cross. So I had to kind of remove him from that area. I wanted him to be on my bed while he slept that night. So I put him there, and unfortunately, things deteriorated from there. He pretty much lost all body functions, and it just got worse from there. So again, my grandmother came to me and told me that, this was the time, and that I was trying to communicate with him, but I was so emotional, it was hard. So the next day, I brought him to the vet, and we compassionately put him out of his misery. His breathing, they did an exam. His breathing was so labored. It was so tough for him. And he was in distress. And I didn't want that. I wanted it to be as humane as possible for him. So I had given him a good life, and trust me, I had done everything I possibly could for him. And the vet said that, he looked really healthy aside from that. So talking to my grandmother again, she told me everything was going to be all right. I closed my eyes, and basically what happened is I crossed him over the Rainbow Bridge. I don't know if anybody's familiar with the Rainbow Bridge, but if you are, I'm going to tell you this is the poem. It's inspired by a Norse legend. It says, "By the edge of a woods at the foot of a hill is a lush green meadow where time stands still, where the friends of man and women do run when their time on earth is over and done. For here between this world and the next is a place where each beloved creature finds rest. On this golden land they wait and they play till the rainbow bridge they cross over one day. No more do they suffer in pain or in sadness, for here they are whole, their lives filled with gladness. Their limbs are restored, their health renewed, their bodies have healed with strength imbued. They romp through the grass without even a care until one day they start and sniff at the air. All ears prick forward, eyes dart front and back, then all of a sudden one breaks from the pack. For just at that instant, their eyes have met, together again, both person and pet. So they run to each other, these friends from long past. The time of their parting is over at last. The sadness they felt while they were apart has turned into joy once more in each heart. They embrace with a love that will last forever, and then side by side they cross over together." So the Rainbow Bridge is usually where all animals go. My vet was really, really nice. And they even took paw prints and gave me a little plaque with the Rainbow Bridge, which basically the cat had been my daughter's. So I passed that along to her. And the story really tells of, the story of the Rainbow Bridge is really, it's a green meadow located on this side of heaven. It's really before we enter heaven. And it's the name of both the meadow and the adjoining bridge connecting it to heaven. So according to the story, when a pet dies, it goes to that meadow, having been restored to its, no pain, free of any injuries, perfect health, and they can run and play and do whatever they're doing there with unlimited supply of water, food, sunshine, everything, that makes them happy, everything that just gives them peace and joy, no pain, and they can look down upon their loved ones and just kind of, even though they miss their owners and they left behind, they can still see them. So then when the owner passes, they come across the Rainbow Bridge. And it's at that moment when the pet stops, they kind of sniff around, smell the air, and they look in the distance to see their person that they love coming over to them. And so excited, they run as fast as they can until they're in their owner's arms. They jump in their arms, they lick their face, do whatever it is that their pet does. And so their pet, who was absent on Earth but really never left their heart, they're united again. So then side by side they cross the Rainbow Bridge together into heaven, never again to be separated. So basically it gave me a lot of peace to know that that's where he was going. And I'm fortunate enough in the work that I do to know that death never separates us from love, even with pets. So although I might have been grieving, I was really fortunate to still feel his presence around me, even that same night. So to continue with the story, my daughter didn't want me to be alone for dinner that night. So her and her family took me out to eat, and we're in the restaurant, and we're just talking about nothing to do with the pet either. We were just talking in general. And all of a sudden I smell this intense cigarette smoke. And I'm looking around saying, "Hey, I thought this was a non-smoking restaurant." And my son-in-law says, "Yeah, no, it is." And nobody could smell it but me. So then my daughter says to me, "Well, didn't your meme smoke cigarettes?" And it took me a few minutes. I Yeah, she did actually. So again, my grandmother, my meme, was coming to me that night as confirmation to let me know that she was definitely around and she was definitely helping out, taking care of, and, watching over him. That was confirmation for me that she had received him on the other side. Even though I had talked to her that day when it happened and she told me that she would, her coming to me with a scent and letting me know that she was there definitely gave me that confirmation and that contentment, that contented feeling. So later that night, I was doing some work on the computer and I was sitting cross-legged on the bed, and my other cat Midnight jumped up on the bed, and he's very verbal too. He communicates with my grandmother all the time. He meows like crazy. I went to a psychic years ago who told me that every time, or psychic medium who told me that every time my grandmother was around, she was communicating with him. And she said, "Do you ever find that your cat just meows for no reason out of the blue, like multiple times?" And I said, "Yeah, that happens all the time." And she said, "Well, your grandmother's there and he's talking to your grandmother. He's having a conversation with her." So now, and again, it gives me a great comfort to know that that's what's happening. So that being said, so I'm sitting there doing the work and Midnight comes up and he starts meowing and doing his talking. And I figure he's having a conversation. Then the next thing I know, he lays down, he settles down on the bed and he's pretty quiet and he bolts upright all of a sudden. And he starts staring at the wall above me and his head is kind of like looking like a bobblehead. He's like all over the place. And he's basically letting me know again that my grandmother I'm assuming it's my grandmother, either that or Cece had already made his appearance and let us know that he was there and that he was okay. And I wasn't sure if pets could come through that quickly, but Sonya just said that they can. So it's good to know that that's confirmation that regardless, either my grandmother had him in her arms and she was taking care of him for me on the other side, or he was there letting me know he was safe and feeling better and there was no more pain anymore. So that's really all that's the most important thing, is to know that the cat no longer was suffering. Because again, I am very compassionate and very humane, and I definitely didn't want to take any chances at all with him as far as having him be in any pain. And as soon as that became an issue, it was time to help him on the other side. But I am going to try some of this advice that she gave about talking to the cat and letting the Midnight know now that I'm home. I'm going to let him know when I'm coming and going, and I'm going to speak to him and try to communicate with him that way. It's very interesting. I had just lent her book. I have that book that she wrote, the one about the cats, and it's The Pet Psychic, What Animals Tell Me Cat Talk. And that one is I tried this a long time ago and I wasn't very successful. I just recently lent it to a friend of mine. So it's interestingly enough that this is all happening all at the same time. And I think that Cece's also trying to give me a message because we ended up with a mouse in my house just a few days after he passed. And I think he's trying to tell me something. So I'm going to look up the totem of what mouse is, try to figure out what he's trying to get message across to me. But I do know that he's content on the other side now, and that puts me at great ease. So I would like to say that next week on the show, we are going to have, it's the 4th of July, so we won't be here for a live show. There'll be a rebroadcast, I believe, of one of the shows that I've done in the past. And again, I would like to take the time to say thank you so much for Sonya to be part of the show today and to come on and impart all this wisdom about animal communication. And stay tuned. Come back with me for the following week after July 4th. I'd love to hear from you. Anybody have any questions, please write or send me comments anytime you want. www.lisawillette.com is my website, or lisawillette@comcast.net. You can email me. Have a great weekend, everybody, and happy 4th of July next week.
Thank you for listening to Empowering Your Soul. Please be sure to join Lisa Ouellet for another engaging program next Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time, noon Eastern Time on the Voice America 7th Wave channel. This week, stop feeling imprisoned and start being empowered.
Thanks again for listening to the preceding program brought to you on the 7th Wave Network. For more information about our network and to check out additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit seventhwavenetwork.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the preceding program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.